Hi everyone, welcome back to my UGC NET lecture series. Today we are going to discuss one of the most important and socially powerful modern criminological theories, that is feminist criminology. This theory completely changed the way criminologists understand crime, victimization, justice, and society. Earlier, most criminological theories focused mainly on men as offenders, men as victims, and men as the center of research. Women's experiences were often ignored or treated as unimportant. Feminist criminology challenges entire approach and asked a very important question: how can criminology claim to explain crime when it ignores the experiences of women? And honestly, this is what makes feminist criminology so important for UGC NET students. It is not just a theory to memorize, it is a perspective that helps us understand how gender inequality, patriarchy, social control, and discrimination shape crime and justice. So in today's video, we will understand the full theory in simple language with examples, real life case studies, major ideas, criticism, and a conclusion. And trust me, once you understand this theory emotionally and socially, it becomes very easy to remember in the examination hall. So stay connected till the end. Feminist criminology developed mainly during the 1960s and 1970s, along with the feminist movement happening across different countries. Feminist scholars believed that traditional criminology was male-centered because most theories were written by male criminologists and based mainly on male offenders. Women were almost invisible in criminological research. If women committed crimes, society often viewed them as immoral, emotional, mentally unstable, or biologically abnormal. At the same time, crimes committed against women, such as domestic violence, rape, workplace harassment, marital abuse, trafficking, and dowry violence, were not taken seriously by society or even by the criminal justice system. Feminist criminologists challenge this inequality. Important scholars associated with feminist criminology include Carol Smart, Freda Adler, Rita Simon, and several other feminist researchers who argued that crime cannot be properly understood without understanding gender relations in society. To understand this theory deeply, we need to understand the social reality that feminist criminologists observe. Society often gives more power, freedom, and authority to men, while women face restrictions, discrimination, and control. This unequal social structure is known as patriarchy. Patriarchy means a social system where men hold dominant power in family, politics, economy, religion, and social institutions. Feminist criminologists believe that patriarchy influences crime, victimization, and even the functioning of the social. For example, many women suffer domestic violence but remain silent because society teaches them to adjust and protect family honor. Similarly, women victims are often blamed for crimes committed against them. Feminist criminologists argued that this inequality must become an important part of criminological study. They believe that women experience crime differently, fear crime differently, and are treated differently by society and law. The first important idea is that crime and victimization are connected with gender inequality. Women often face discrimination in education, employment, wages, mobility, and safety. Because of these inequalities, women become more vulnerable to exploitation, abuse, and violence. The second major idea is that society often ignores crime against women. For many years, domestic violence was considered a private family matter. Sexual harassment was normalized, marital rape was ignored, women's complaints were often dismissed. Feminist criminology challenged this silence and demanded recognition of women's victimization. The third important idea is that the criminal justice system itself may carry gender bias. Police officers, lawyers, judges, and investigators are also part of society, and society itself may have patriarchal thinking. Because of this, women victims may not always receive fair treatment. Sometimes women offenders are judged more harshly because society expects women to behave morally and obediently. The fourth important idea is intersectionality. All women do not experience oppression in the same way. A poor woman, a Dalit woman, or tribal woman, or a minority woman may face multiple layers of discrimination together. This idea became extremely important in India because caste, class, and gender often intersect in criminal victimization. Some feminist scholars try to explain women's offending behavior also. Freda Adler argued that as a woman gained freedom and entered public spaces, they also gained more opportunities to commit crimes, including white collar crimes. Similarly, Rita Simon believe that women's participation in employment and professional life increase their chances of involvement in crime. However, later feminist scholars criticized this argument and said liberation itself is not the cause of crime. They argued that many women commit crime because of poverty, abuse, lack of opportunities, coercion, trafficking, addiction, or survival needs. For example, some women involved in theft, drug transportation, or prostitution may actually be victims of exploitation themselves. So, feminist criminology focuses more on structural inequality rather than blaming individual for morality. Now, let us connect this theory with important case studies because this part is very important for UGC NET understanding. One of the most important examples connected with feminist criminology is the Banwari Devi case. Banwari Devi was a social worker from Rajasthan who tried to stop child marriage in a village as part of a government campaign. Because she challenged traditional patriarchal practices, she faced social hostility and was later gang raped by dominant caste men. The case exposed several social realities: gender inequality, caste-based oppression, abuse of power, and the failure of institutions to protect women. The legal system initially failed to provide justice properly, and this created nationwide protest by women's rights groups. This case later became highly significant because it influenced the development of guidelines against workplace sexual harassment in India, known as the Vishaka Guidelines. From the perspective of feminist criminology, this case shows how patriarchy, power imbalance, caste hierarchy, and gender violence are deeply connected. Another landmark case is the Mathura rape case. Mathura, a young tribal girl, was allegedly raped inside a police station by policemen. Shockingly, the court initially questioned her consent and character instead of focusing on abuse of authority and custodial violence. This judgment shocked many feminist activists and legal scholars across India. Massive protests followed demanding reforms in rape laws. This case became a turning point in Indian feminist legal movements and clearly reflects feminist criminology's argument that criminal justice systems may also reflect patriarchal attitudes. Dowry-related violence is another important issue explained through feminist criminology. Thousands of women face harassment, cruelty, physical abuse, and even death because of dowry demands. Feminist criminologists argue that such violence is not simply an individual family problem but a structural social problem connected with patriarchy and the treatment of women as economic burdens. These cases demonstrate how cultural traditions and gender inequality can contribute to violence against women. Acid attacks in India also strongly connect with feminist criminology. In many incidents, women become victims because they rejected marriage proposals, resisted harassment, or just challenged male control. Feminist criminologists explain such crimes as acts of power, domination, and control rather than simple anger or revenge. These crimes reflect how patriarchal attitudes may punish women for exercising independence. One of the greatest contributions of feminist criminology was its influence on victimology. Earlier criminology focused mainly on offenders, while feminist scholars shifted attention towards victims, especially women victims. Issues like domestic violence, sexual harassment, workplace exploitation, stalking, cyber harassment, emotional abuse, and marital violence received serious academic attention because of feminist criminology. The theory also challenged victim blaming attitudes in society. Instead of asking questions like why was she outside late, what was she wearing, why did she trust him, feminist criminologists argued that society should focus on offender responsibility rather than controlling women's behavior. Over time, feminist criminology developed into different branches. Liberal feminists focused on equal rights, legal reforms, education, and employment opportunities. Radical feminists viewed patriarchy and male domination as the root causes of women's oppression. Marxist feminists connected women's exploitation with capitalism and economic inequality. Socialist feminists combined patriarchy and capitalism together. Postmodern feminists argue that all women do not share identical experiences and emphasize diversity among women. For UGC NET students, remember that feminist criminology is not a single unified theory but a broad collection of gender centered. Like every criminological theory, feminist criminology also faces criticism. Some critics argue that certain feminist perspectives focus mainly on women and ignore male victimization. Others believe that radical feminist theories may sometimes portray all men negatively, which may oversimplify social relationships. Some scholars also argue that feminist criminology focuses heavily on victimization but gives comparatively less attention to explaining women's criminal behavior. There are also disagreements among different feminist scholars themselves, making the theory broad and sometimes difficult to unify. However, despite criticism, feminist criminology remains one of the most influential modern criminological perspectives because it transformed the entire direction of criminological research. And dear students, while preparing for UGC NET, remember one important thing: theories become easy when you connect them to real society. You do not study criminology like a machine, study it like a human being who wants to understand the society very deeply. Every theory tells a story about people, power, fear, inequality, and justice. And trust me, your consistency matters more than perfection. Some days you may feel tired, some days you may feel confused, some days you may think the syllabus is too huge, but one topic daily with proper understanding can slowly change your preparation completely. The students who clear UGC NET are not always the most intelligent students. Very often they are simply the students who continued even when preparation became difficult. So keep believing in yourself. So to conclude, feminist criminology challenged the traditional male-dominated approach of criminology and highlighted how gender inequality, patriarchy, and social structures influence crime victimization. The theory emphasized women's experiences, crimes against women, gender discrimination, and biases within society and the criminal justice system. It also gave importance to issues like domestic violence, rape, dowry deaths, workplace harassment, acid attacks, and women's safety. Most importantly, feminist criminology gave voice to experiences that had been ignored for decades, and that is why this theory remains one of the most important modern criminological perspectives even today. If you found this lecture helpful, then do like, share, and subscribe to the channel Criminology and Forensic Science for more easy explanations of criminology theories for UGC NET preparation. Keep studying consistently, keep believing in yourself, and I will meet you in the next video.